Discover the Our MedTech Lives podcast, where industry experts share their career stories, key achievements, and insights into overcoming challenges in the MedTech field. Hosted by Zilka Rima and Kash Ikram.
Kristie Amobi of G3 Medical Marketing. She is a veteran of the industry with over 24 years of sales and marketing experience, a lot of it with Elekta, the radiation therapy company. But after a long stint there, she decided to go it alone and start her own company called G3 Medical Marketing, where she helps multiple clients with their sales and marketing needs. So without further ado, welcome, Kristie.
Thank you so much, Kash.
Kristie, just as an introduction, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What's your background and how did you get started in the MedTech industry?
Sure, and thank you, Silka. It's a pleasure to be here. My background, I studied biology in college. I thought I'd go into medicine, and I was living in the Bay Area at the time, which was quite a thing. There was a lot going on with various .com startups. We all kind of remember the news of the time.
Yeah.
And so I found my way to a medical software company. And, I went into it just because it was so exciting. All these companies were popping up all over the place. And I discovered that I really liked the combination of business and medicine. And the rest is history, as they say. Along the way, I did go back to school and get my MBA, which was a great complement to my science degree. So I have that kind of both aspects of formal education. But you guys know, you learn along the way, regardless of what your degrees are.
Absolutely. It's a great combination of what you studied and then later on adding that work experience to your business education, right?
Kristie,
Right.
You are one of the few who don't say I'm not been MedTech by coincidence. So that's already something.
No, I chose it.
You
Yeah.
see?
I did choose
Big
it.
difference. But when we look at your LinkedIn profile, we see that you had a corporate career, but obviously now you have your own company. So why did you decide to start your own business?
Yeah, that's a good question. I appreciate so much the experience that I got working inside of a company. There's just so much that you're able to learn. In a lot of ways, you're able to advance, dip your hands into different types of responsibilities. I learned a lot about, say, the differences between marketing communications and product marketing and brand, right? Like working at a company. I was, in the senior leadership position, also growing my family. There were a lot of travel requirements and, I had made the decision that I needed to travel less. Really, that was one of the turning points. And I thought initially that I would just do some consulting and then, kind of head into another company, right? Like that would have less travel. But what happened is I started consulting and then I quickly realized, well, wait a minute, like there's all these other needs that these companies have, right? Especially companies that are small. Maybe they only have one person in-house. Maybe that person's like an event manager, right? So they need some fractional support here and some fractional support here. And that kind of spawned the development of G3. And we're a really small group and, we specialize exclusively in MedTech. So our clients describe MedTech and I would say some software and adjacent kind of app type stuff. But our clients describe working with us as a, kind of employee meets agency meets consultant. And I think that is a part of my background. I came from the company side of things. So it's impossible for me not to put myself in the role of an employee, right? Like in the role of someone who wants the success of this company, wants this company to achieve its mission. So I do a lot of strategy work here, but I also roll up my sleeves, which I really like. That's one of the reasons why I've kept it small. So I can still put my hands on projects. And, we still do a lot of fractional work too. So I get like the best of both worlds. So sometimes I'm in-house in like a fractional VP role. And then other people on the team are maybe in-house as a fractional graphic designer. So it really gives us the ability to like have a lot of variety of work and still make a big impact.
Yeah, I think that period that you were in marketing for the last 24 years, I mean, marketing has changed, right? From handing out brochures and sending out leaflets in the post to this whole digital world, and now with AI, which we're going to talk about today. But I agree, companies struggled in the device area because of regulations. It was like, well, what can we do and what can't we do? Because it was very easy to control the message when it was analog, that it was to the doctor, and here in Europe, direct to customer was not allowed, right? So how do we create websites? How do we do this digital marketing that's available perhaps to everybody in the world and not break this code of not direct to patient type marketing? So companies struggled, and you got a lot, even some big companies were out of step. I remember it was a long time. I worked for a big corporate, and we were not allowed to put anything about the company on LinkedIn or Facebook or anything like that. You know, don't even think about it. You would lose your jobs immediately. The guillotine would come down. And now, you know, we've evolved. But what you saw was some companies were really behind. Some were taking the lead and advanced. But the gap between them was very wide, probably wider than other industries. And that was a great gap for you to step into.
Sure.
Right? And full disclosure, you and I have worked together, you know, with your agency, and it does feel like you're a member of the team, right? You are on board. You got the same desire that we have to be successful in that specific area. And your knowledge in the med device and the radiation therapy area specifically is encyclopedic, I would say. So it's great to work with you on that.
But Kristie, you just said it as a little remark, but I find it quite impressive. You said I started with a little bit of consultancy, but you have a team, right? So how did you grow your company? It's also you now manage a company again.
Right. Yeah. No, it took a lot of time, Silka. I'm going to be honest with you. I curated really a group of people over the course of the last 10 years. Those first few years, there were a number of individuals that I worked with who were, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, a 10 in their particular skill set, but didn't really fit like the G3 business model. And so we are known for subject matter expertise, speed and value. We're not going to be the cheapest group in the mix, but we work very fast. And the group of people that I have working with us are very committed to quick turnaround times, because especially these clients that I'm talking to you about, right? They don't have a very big marketing team. A lot of them are, still in like the early stages of their growth. The ability to get things done quickly is really important, but they can't spend, an arm and a leg, right? And so there were projects initially that we wouldn't take on because I didn't feel like I had a good way to deliver that. And I wasn't going to promise something that we couldn't do. For example, video development, right? Video development was not a service offering that we had in the beginning, but we do now. And one of the things that's changed, Cash, you were asking a little bit about that, is, back in the day, like sort of flash in the time machine 20 years ago, but to do a video, you needed to invest at least $25,000. Like you needed a crew, you needed that person that to go on site, heavily scripted models, lots of props, lighting. I mean, the production quality, the demands of the production quality were much more significant, right? Then COVID. Now you can see on CNN, like the president of the Ukraine's like doing his interview on his phone, right? And so there's a lot more that we can do, even just with like a Zoom recording and cutting that into like a 30-second little promo clip for social media, right? That is not going to cost $25,000. Those are things that we can just generate. I mean, if FYI, if someone's charging you $25,000 to do that, you're being charged.
You know what? I had this epiphany when my daughter was 12, right? So this is 12 years ago, right? She came home from school, and her and her friend, they came and said, "Oh, look at this, Dad." And on their phone, she pulled up this video, and it was, I would walk 5,000 steps, right? That was a proclaimers, right? And they had created a video at school with lots of images of them, and it was incredible. And they did it on the phone, her and her friend, two 12-year-olds. And I looked at it and I thought, this is the same quality as the agency that I'm paying for like 35 grand to make me this video for work. And these two kids have just done it for free as a school project. That was for me the epiphany that things have moved a lot, and we don't need to be spending all this money with agencies, right?
Right.
Oftentimes going into the OR, filming loads of film and then putting it on the shelf at the agency. It wouldn't even see the light of day. But then again, if we had said 10, 15 years ago, we're going to take this video and we're going to put a 30-second clip on the World Wide Web, probably marketers back then would have gone white with fear. What are you saying? What are you thinking?
Right.
No, we're not a can of soda, right?
Right. Yeah. And the marketing teams would have gone, probably the head of marketing, but also the regulatory and quality assurance folks would have been like, what?
Yeah.
So I think that piece of what you're also describing with some of the changes, the companies are much more agile, right? And like allowing employees to post things, reshare things, that sort of thing. I do think that there's still, though, that regulatory arm that's really important. And, in this space, it is claims and the clearances that you have with the FDA or NDR. This stuff is actually still really important. And so it is relevant that you have someone on the team who understands this and also understands like what is really the black and white line and what is maybe some gray area, right?
Yes.
And having a framework that, your regulatory team has bought into in terms of messaging, right? Like these are really the black and white issues. But if it's not one of these things, right? If it's not one of these 10 things or one of these 20 things, like you've got some flexibility, right? With messaging and how you put things together to talk about the value.
Yeah, I mean, making sure you can back up any claims that are made about your products or the treatments, very, very, very important that is done correctly. But I think we're now we understand that much more than people making all sorts of claims.
Right, exactly.
So,
Kristie, just out of curiosity, what does G3?
G3 is just a name I came up with. There's no special story.
So you woke up in the morning and saw
I wanted
G3.
something short. Yeah, I wanted something short. I suppose perhaps you could say it was inspired by the G series of private airplanes, right? I wanted something that would be short, and that is actually what has happened. So even though the business name and our domain is the full name of the company, around the bend, you'll hear our clients will just say G3, G3, G3. And it's just become kind of, I thought about maybe backing into a more interesting story about that, but there's really no
I always
story.
ask people about the name. And funny enough, my tax advisor has a funny name and starts with A. And I said, I get the other two letters, but I don't get the A. And she said this was to appear first.
okay.
So this can also be an explanation.
Wow.
Having grown up in the middle of the alphabet, I will say it's nice. It has been nice to be at the beginning now.
Now, one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you is because you are an expert in the use of AI in marketing, right? This is something that's evolved very quickly in the last few years. So a lot of you're advising a lot of your clients on how they can use AI to enhance their marketing, right?
Yes.
But do they turn up and say, "Oh, Kristie, please tell us how we can use AI in our marketing," or are you having to introduce it to them and coach them?
We're introducing it to them.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the reasons why I think people feel like we're a part of the team that you mentioned, Cash, is because we're always, whether you like it or not, we're adding a thought, as I like to say. When companies are coming to us and they're saying, well, how do I, what position should I hire first? Usually that conversation goes something along the lines of event specialist or marketing specialist, someone that can help manage all the events and trade shows. Because even though there's been a growth in digital marketing in this space, the lion's share of the discretionary spend is still with events and trade shows. And I think it's going to be that way for some time in this specific area. But then we'll say you can have the person use some AI, like we do a longer form article for you, a customer interview, right? You can take that customer interview. You can have your marketing specialist in-house, feed it through an AI, tell the AI to generate a 300-word post for a patient, or generate a 75-word post for social media, or rework this content, but for maybe for a cancer center administrator, not for a physician, right? And that's the stuff that the AI can do. And the AI can generate a draft of that content pretty well. You still need a subject matter expert to review the content, do some copy editing, and make sure that it still sounds appropriate. But honestly, some of the AI tools have really blown my mind with regard to content generation. And I can honestly say, like, not a lot blows my mind. So for me to say that is like, jaw.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, content generation is a big thing and become extremely streamlined, right? Social posts, articles, captions, copy, right, scripts, all that stuff. But you do still need, as you said, a subject matter expert to go through relevance, checking the claims that we mentioned before, etc.
Right.
Right?
Right. And in case of a small organization, like let's say maybe an organization that only has a marketing specialist and maybe a product manager and some type of medical officer. I mean, that team together can do some of that review. But as you guys know, I mean, it's so much easier to review something that's already been written than it is to try to generate something from source material, right? It's a lot quicker to copy edit something that already exists. And that's a huge, huge time savings. I think the other area is in image generation. So if we need a very specific image, right, and we don't have the time or money to go do a photo shoot, we've been able to generate images that are of a high enough quality, like we would call them like production quality images, for creative campaigns, for maybe imagery that accompanies like an article or a social media post. I will say there, though, really needs somebody who has some experience with graphic design. I mean, they don't need to be a full-blown professional graphic designer with 20 years of experience. You don't need that person. But you need somebody who has a little bit of understanding of like creative composition and, to kind of guide the AI.
Yes. It's almost a new skill set, right? It's a new role.
You always talk about these tools. Would you share a few of these impressive tools with us? So is it a secret?
Yes. Good segue. So for content generation, absolutely my number one recommendation is ChatGPT, the paid version. Once you kind of get playing around with it, you'll find that you'll use it a lot just in your personal life too. Once you have that app on your phone. For image generation, we like a tool called Midjourney. And for companies that have a smaller internal staff, maybe do not have a graphic designer in-house or don't have even that resource as a contractor, I recommend the paid subscription for Canva. There are a lot of AI tools
It's
embedded
what we use for the podcast.
Oh yeah, there you have it. Yeah, there are a lot of AI tools embedded already in Canva, and you can really generate a pretty high quality product.
And then what about when you're reaching out to customers with maybe email marketing campaigns, etc.? Is there a role for AI there? Because I know there's a process clearly that you're following, which depending on whether you get this type of result or no result back, is that also an area where we can use AI?
Yeah, I do think that some of the systems, some of the CRM systems are now developing more advanced tools for what we would call sales enablement, lead nurturing, more sophistication. For example, Marketo and HubSpot have embedded AI that do perform some of the analysis on refinement to improve engagement, that sort of
Right.
thing.
Yes.
It really, for us, in terms of working with our clients, it kind of depends on like what is the particular business objective. And, we may make a recommendation based on what they have, right? For example, if they don't have HubSpot or they don't have Marketo as their marketing automation system, then we may make a recommendation of an add-on tool that enables a level of sophistication that they're not necessarily, using. But we also have to evaluate like the appetite for change, like any kind of like,
Yeah.
like any kind of project that you would take on. Like, for example, do they really have a salesperson that is going to be our partner in this activity, right?
Yes.
Or are they expecting us to come in, just wave our magic wand and suddenly, boom, this huge increase with engagements, huge increase with lead. As you know, the sales and marketing alignment piece of this
Yes.
is mission critical. So the best AI tool in the world isn't going to solve your sales and marketing alignment challenge, right?
And what about like research? Let's say I'm launching a hearing device or a glucose monitor or diabetic monitoring device, and I want to know what are my potential customers or diabetics or people with hearing loss. What are they saying or thinking out there? Can we use it for research as well?
Yeah, I have some experience in this in helping
Yeah.
to develop, messaging platforms for various clients. And I do think that in, primary research with regard to kind of that scouring of the internet, right, that encyclopedia of knowledge, if you do ask the AI a question that's very targeted, I think you will get a pretty comprehensive answer. The things to remember are, though, that that's really just being informed by what is its data input, right? And so it's not necessarily going to capture some of the nuance. And so we also recommend when you're doing this, this kind of research background discovery type of project, that you supplement it with interviews, even structured interviews, right? Even just a few, to then augment what the AI has generated to give it a little bit more of that nuance, which is so important in, right, really understanding needs and wants,
Yes.
perceptions, getting at the thing that is that the human thing that the AI might not necessarily be capturing, because it's just like consolidating data.
Right, so you can do a number of interviews of groups or people and feed it all into the AI, right? And say,
Right.
pull out some of which you may have missed, right? Or something that you're
Right.
not, nuances that may sway the marketing and then help you develop a product or market the product in a certain way, right?
Correct. Yeah. And I think that's actually a really good point, Cash, too, because I was initially talking about how you take the interview product and add it to the source information that the AI has already generated. But with what you're talking about, absolutely, we've also found it incredibly helpful for, like, let's say we take 10 transcripts of structured interviews and we say, okay, give us the top 3 things that are important to this type of role, right? Like maybe it's in the case of a radiation therapist, right? But then I think it's also important to have that check step back to say to a therapist community outside of the structured interview, hey, is this
Yes.
landing, right?
Right.
So you are super advanced in AI already. This is what we hear. What advice do you have for MedTech marketing professionals getting started in AI?
This is going to just seem like I'm stating the obvious, but it's just to get started. And I would recommend, We did a webinar at the end of the year, and we pulled a survey question, how many of you are using, some type of AI tool right now? And it was about 50% of the audience.
Interesting.
Yeah, I did actually think that that was interesting, but that's also 50% of the audience is not using anything. I mean, the time is now, right? It's very, very easy. It's $20, right? Like that's, in the grand scheme of things, that is not a lot of money. And you really have to get a feel. I can share from my own personal experience that you really have to get a feel for the prompts and how to use them and what it outputs. And you realize when you start using it, you're like, well, yeah, that wasn't a very good prompt, and that's why it didn't generate. That's why what it generated was not high quality, right? And so personally, I wish that I had made the commitment to get started earlier with it myself. It was kind of always one of those things that I was like, the reminder on the calendar would pop up like, play with the AI, play with the AI, play with the AI. And I would just like, dismiss.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, when you said you need to improve the prompt and you realize it wasn't a good one, does it also change our interpersonal communication? Because maybe sometimes this is exactly the same thing in personal conversations, right? I get a different response because I did it wrong.
Yeah. It's an interesting comment, Silka. I will say that now that I have been using AI more, I can notice in my own interpersonal interactions where there is a miscommunication because I think I'm being clear, but I'm actually really not being clear. And I can see it happening in real time, whether that's with my husband, my coworkers, my friends. I mean, I've seen it all over, and it does really raise your awareness of the nuance of human communication.
Yes.
Especially when you're interfacing with a machine, right? That's just been programmed. You're like, okay, yeah, I can see where miscommunication is just rampant in life, right? Because maybe my question wasn't clear or my comment wasn't clear, or it can be easily misunderstood.
Is there a perception with a customer when you go, hey, let's use some AI stuff, that they say, oh my God, this is going to cost me a lot of money, right? Is
not
people...
really? No.
Okay.
No. If anything, I think they're thinking, wow, it's great that is using some AI, because that means that the money that I'm spending is actually going to be spent on things that are more valuable than having G3 just run through copywriting, for example. I will say there is a reluctance that I've seen internally with the team, the internal teams, to use the AI. And I think that is a function of just, internal teams are really busy and they're being spread in a lot of directions and they're having to do more with less. I mean, the more with less is just getting worse, right? It's not getting better. And so it's, even just this like discussion that we're having about getting started, like person internally can't even like come up for air, right? Much less get started on the AI prompting, right?
You're so right. I mean, if anybody here has been at their annual kickoff and someone on the stage has said, this year we're going to do more with less, you should be using AI tools, because otherwise you will be drowning, right?
Right.
I wish I had 10 years ago.
I think not only this, it's also very time saving, because what I experienced recently was I need a cover letter immediately. And I was like, oh, immediately. And she said, just use AI and then ChatGPT will tell you. And it was really, really good. So I think more and more we will use it.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you. In fact, we're putting out a fire with a client this morning, and I was texting with the divisional sales director, and I was like, I'm just going to use AI to do it. And she's like, that's a fantastic idea. Yep.
And what about the other areas of marketing? So there's the communication part, but like marketers are very much concerned with segmentation. Which customers do we go after? We take the customer support side aside, but segmentation analysis, churn, like which customers should we invest more in, and which customers are we going to lose just because of the nature of the market? Are there AI tools perhaps that can help us with the analytics side of marketing as well?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with any AI tools that can evaluate, churn and that type of thing. I would say just with the primary segmentation, the AI tools, even ChatGPT is really good at would tell you what audiences, like what large groups, these are the types of individuals that work in a cancer center. This is what their job is, right? It's really good for onboarding, maybe somebody that doesn't have experience with this type of environment, right? And learning like who's who and what's important to them. But in terms of predictive qualities of like, okay, red alert, you have these many customers that are acting this way.
Yes.
They're like almost like a triaging to say, pay attention to this group because they might be leaving you in 12 months. I personally haven't seen anything like that, but I'm sure somebody's working on that type of thing, especially these CRM companies that have all the data, right? Like they have the data around calls, engagement, support tickets, product utilization, upgrades. I'm sure if that stuff doesn't exist, that it's on the way.
Yeah.
How did you acquire all this knowledge about AI? Was there a course, or did you do it by just learning by doing, or how did it work for you?
Mostly learning by doing, learning by research. For our AI webinar, I actually co-presented with a radiation oncologist, which was really fun. So he has a podcast that he produces entirely on his own using AI. So he even uses AI generated voiceover and music generation via AI for the music over and it was really fun to collaborate with him because you don't see a lot of doctors doing this type of thing. There are some, right? There's a percentage of some physicians that are really passionate about this type of thing. But I had always wondered, well, how does he's got a big, important day job. Like, how does he have time to do all this? And I discovered, well, it's because he's using a lot of AI to help support him. And it was really fun to like collaborate with him. Some of the tools that he had mentioned in the webinar, we didn't even know about, and so we added a slide at the end of the webinar. Oh, it's like all of his tools.
Yeah.
So that's been really, kind of learning by doing, but also collaborating. And that's the other thing that, just kind of take it home to like G3. One of the things that we're always encouraging our clients to do is think about their other business collaborations as a way to generate more leads, refine their messaging and how they're positioning their product with prospects. I think a lot of times like the salespeople are just thinking digital, right? Especially now, right? Digital. And there's like just so many other things that need to be considered in an effective marketing strategy.
Yeah. If people want to see your webinar, where can they find it?
You can just go to the website and it's posted in a blog area. There's a recording. It's about 30 minutes long. And we have a Q&A there too.
Fantastic. I think one area where I hope companies get AI and their own little chatbots is with these automated customer service things, right? Because you end up in a loop sometimes. The chatbot can't answer your question and there's no one to talk to and it gets really frustrating. That's my personal gripe.
True.
But I think it's a good segue because the doctor you work with is in the radiation therapy area, right?
Yes.
And those guys are technology, hardware, software rich. Their lives are very much concerned with all that stuff. So I can see where the interest comes from, right? You go to radiation therapy, they're doing all the planning using computers, AI tools. They're doing the treatment using cameras from the ceiling that are precisely measuring where the patient is sitting. Radiation is being controlled by software and computers as well as the hardware generating. So it's a rich area. And this is a world that you spent, almost a decade in, right? Working at Elekta. So tell us a little bit about how AI is coming into the medical product area, and maybe specifically in radiation therapy, if you like.
You're right, Cash. I mean, in terms of like leadership with regard to software enabled systems, I think radiation oncology led the way in a lot of regard because these treatments are very sophisticated. You're delivering a high dose of radiation to a very targeted area. You need to verify that that dose is what the machine said it delivered, and so some of the development of the early medical software technology was in this area, right? To manage the sophistication of these treatments, right? Which can get very, very complicated. Now with the AI, I see that a lot of radiation oncologists in particular are really excited about the developments with auto contouring.
Okay.
Because again, some of the cases are very complex. You're delivering in many cases a very high level of radiation to a very, small area. You want to make sure that you don't have extra dose outside of the range of the tumor.
Maybe just to say what contouring is for those who may not know.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. So contouring would just be how you essentially draw the delivery of the radiation around the tumor, right? And the sophistication of that is important because a lot of times, most of the time, the patient's total dose of radiation is divided over several treatments. And so each treatment is delivering a fraction of the dose, of the total dose. And these, as you would imagine, these cancer cases are very complex. Yes. And how you deliver that dose over the course of treatments, there's an art to it in some cases, right? And their software can do some of it, but, there also is a manual intervention to refine the plan based on the clinical team's experience, right? And so there are a lot of time consuming tasks involved in that process. And so the AI is able, in some cases, to significantly reduce the amount of time that's required for the human to interact with the software. And so that is fascinating to me. And the radiation oncologists have been really impressed with the quality of some of these AI tools.
Because you want to hit the tumor and you want to have a little bit of a margin around the tumor so you don't leave parts of the tumor. But then you also don't want to hit a neighboring organ like gut or lung or heart, right, which is particularly sensitive to radiation, right? So yeah, it is a very precise and very important aspect.
Right. I think another area that's emerging is in offline adaptive radiotherapy, and that's a mouthful. So just to simplify what that means. Just like I was describing between, the total dose of radiation is delivered over several treatments, right? Well, in between those treatments, patients can lose weight. They might gain weight. The tumor might shrink more than the physician is anticipating. It might change location. When patients are breathing, there's changes in the environment. So some of the software now can help adapt the treatment between, adapt the overall plan between treatments. And so that is also very fascinating because the replanning time that would be required to replan from, say, treatment 1 to treatment 2 can be a lot of time. And so if the software is able to help facilitate the replanning activity, then that can save a lot of time for those clinical teams so that they're able to more quickly replan between the treatment visits. And that is really, I think, going to be an area of innovation. To some extent, I hate that word because I think it's overused. But in this particular segment of radiation therapy, I think we're going to see a lot more sophistication over time because of the AI.
Steve, we see that AI is super exciting for you, and maybe that's the answer to my next question already, but I still try. What current G3 project excite you most? Is it AI or is it something else?
Okay, I'm going to mention one more AI. I'm like, AI, and then another area that's not related to AI. But so we talked a little bit about radiation therapy. So in the area of medical oncology, there's been a lot more development in precision oncology, drug therapy, right? And there are new software systems, platforms like powered by AI that help with staging patients, tumor staging, that help with testing compliance. And these systems are better able to support therapy selection. So the medical oncologist choosing the best therapy for the patient related to the stage and the testing, the genomic testing that is helping to support new drug protocols. And these new drugs, again, depending upon your staging and the genomic profile of your cancer, they're actually like helping cancer patients have a better quality of life and supporting longer survivals, which is, that is really what we're trying to do here. So that's like really exciting.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, I have been working in the area of radiation therapy for a number of years. And the thing that is really, really invigorating me now is the extension of lower doses of radiation therapy to treat benign conditions. So that would mean like non-cancerous conditions such as osteoarthritis, plantar fasciitis. I think we can confidently say we know someone who's been affected by cancer. So that has been a very rewarding area to work in. But the incidence of cancer is much lower than the incidence of some of these inflammatory conditions, right? Like osteoarthritis. So the ability to work with companies that are in this low dose radiation therapy space for the benign conditions it's really exciting because I think it's just going to be a way to help impact more patients and provide a better quality of life. So it's very exciting.
Incredible.
This is the question we ask everyone. What are the 3 things you know now that you wish you would have known then? Or in other words, what would you recommend to the younger Kristie?
The younger Kristie, again, we'll use air quote younger, would be first one would be, girl, you should have started on that AI a long time ago. That would be the first one. For sure.
Yeah.
Second piece would be, because of my subject matter in radiation therapy, my expertise in radiation therapy, I think initially with G3, I really kind of stuck with what I knew. And that has a lot of value, but like in thinking about the younger me, I would have challenged myself to explore some other areas sooner rather than later, because I think really the only way, kind of like we were talking about with the AI, like the only way to get going is to get going.
Yeah.
And if you're in your silo, you're just going to always be in your silo, and I think there are instances where you have to like will yourself. I think we always tell ourselves the story of, I don't have time, I got to do, blah, 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 right? So that. And then I think the last but not least is I was an early manager, and, a young manager, I should say. So early in my career, I got the opportunity to supervise staff. And I think it would have been good for me at that time to know too that I was very, very focused on the work product. While that's important, and that is ultimately like we're at work to work and to provide a value either to our company or our clients, it's important to kind of understand the different backgrounds of individuals, things that they're bringing to the work environment. Even like we were talking, Silke, about some of the communication missteps that I've seen. And now that I've been using the AI more, I can objectively look back and think like I could have been a better manager in XYZ way if I had taken some of these these personal things into consideration. And it's not to say like I wasn't touchy-feely. I mean, I wasn't touchy-feely, but I see now also like there is a benefit in understanding like what experiences people are bringing to the work environment from a personal perspective. So just there's improvements that you can make with communication.
Wow. So Kristie, that was amazing, extremely insightful. I think we all know we should be using AI in our lives, but if you're a sales and marketing person in a med device company, don't be part of the 50% that's not using it. Jump on it today and start using AI. It will make you better at everything you do. Thank you for your time
Absolutely.
today.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Kristie.
Thank you for tuning into our MedTech Lives. You have been listening to Zilka Riemer and Tash Ikran. We're committed to bringing you insights and stories that inspire and inform the medical community. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network.